Hey, Vince, we're going live, so just sit back there. Hey, everybody, it is Gary Carpenter, and welcome back. Excited to have you guys here at MREA Coaching, and we've got a special guest today. One of my good friends, and happens to be, I don't know, in the real estate industry, if you can consider somebody a boss, but good friend and boss, mentor, coach, met Vince Leisey about, in 2004. He allowed me to come do a Floyd Wickman training program, even though I hung my real estate license at another brokerage firm within town. But it was, to be honest, it was the only way he was going to get a Floyd Wickman program. But he was doing me a huge favor. It was the first program that I did, so I was really green when it came to the training side of things. But from that point on, just been, just good friends throughout the industry. And 2008, we did a little bit of a merger from a company called CBS Home here in Omaha, Nebraska, and merged over with BHHS. Vince has been in the real estate industry for a little over, I would say about 30, 35 years, somewhere around there. We didn't really come up with the exact number, but let's just say it's been a long time. But when you see him, it's good. He looks like he's been in the business probably 10 years. 35 years, he'd probably be 12 years when he first got into the real estate business. But he's done an amazing job the years that he has been in the business, really embraced the team or the entrepreneurship concept for a real estate agent, and has grown, and recently in 2008 sold the BHHS franchise and became the CEO of the company. And currently, as it is it about, I think we're about 925 real estate agents. So I'm excited for you guys to meet one of my mentors, and he's going to come on and talk about two things for me. One is he's going to talk about what the state of the real estate market is. But first, I want him to kind of talk to you guys directly on what he feels you should be doing in 2020 to be successful in the real estate business. So with that said, there's a great picture. He is, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he is the number one Chiefs fan. And if you guys know this, the Chiefs recently won the they won what is it called? The Super Bowl. So anyhow, let's hear it for Vince Leisey. Vince Leisey. Vince, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm
How'd you like that introduction?
Thank you. I loved it. I wasn't sure if the Chiefs were going to even make a Super Bowl in my lifetime, so I was very happy that they not only made it, but they actually won it. So it was cool.
Well, awesome. Hey, so let's just jump right in. I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
And the first thing I wanted to kind of talk about is just obviously, 2020 was, we're all excited for 2020. 2019 was a banner year for most real estate agents, and 2020 kind of just, started off with, not such, well, it started off great, but
the Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Real estate agents were really optimistic about 2020, and I know I was, still am, just so you know. But then COVID-19 hit, and the whole country shut down. Give us I'd like to hear your kind of perspective on that to the real estate agents.
Yeah, I mean, you are right. If you were looking to the first 2.5 months of 2020, it looked like it was going to be a record-breaking year across the board. We were having a mild winter. Activity was incredible. We had numerous buyers. Interest rates were competitive. Everything was just really, the stock market was at an all-time high. Everything was clicking along really, really well. And then COVID came around and really just kind of hit everyone in the face and put the market and the world on hold, quite honestly, for a period of time. With that being said, over the last 30 days, we've seen the market's back to normal. And so quite honestly, we had last month in May, our best month ever, where we had 1,475 new pending transactions. That included almost 100 transactions that we netted out of there that fell apart. So activity strong. I continue to believe that, and we talk about this a little bit later, that It's going to be a great year at the end of the day, and I wouldn't have guessed that 60 days ago, to be honest with you, Gary.
Well, let me ask you this. So if you were, and again, there's a gamut of real estate agents that are going to watch this video, but you have your, I really kind of saw it from our standpoint is that the agents that were in production before COVID-19 hit this year really kind of stayed in production through the shutdown. And let's face it, here in Omaha, Nebraska, we did not get hit nearly as hard with shutdowns and everything else as say a Pennsylvania or a Washington or a California. But I really kind of saw with our agents that maybe were not necessarily in the top producing category, we're really struggling.
Gary, there's no question. And I would tell you, I run 14 mastermind groups that have 15 to 17 people in them every single month. And so we're from new agents to I have 4 or 5 top producer agent groups where they're doing 50 plus transactions or $10 million. And that's a lot in Omaha because our average sales price is $240-ish. But the top producers are the ones that have really performed well on this same. And I always think that when things hit the economy and things get tough, I always say there's a flock to quality. There's a flock to quality agents, flock to quality businesses. The consumer showed us over the years that when things get tough, they want to do business with somebody that has financial stability, they respect, that they know that it's going to have longevity and is going to be in the business for a long period of time.
Hold on. Technical difficulties.
And Gary.
Sorry about that.
No problem. To your point, I believe first and foremost, and I know we're going to dive into this a little bit more, we're in the relationship building business. And those people that are the top producers are the top producers because they've done a great job of building and nurturing meaningful relationships, and they continue to stay in touch and communicate well with their clients. And those agents that had those great relationships, that had been doing that work in advance on an ongoing basis, really for the most part did not seem to miss much of a beat. As I talked to people running large teams, and as I walked through my mastermind group, it was really the middle to lower agent that was struggling through this. And I think it's the same reason that, unfortunately, they're probably the middle to lower agents is because they're not disciplined where they're time blocking and putting systems in place to make sure that they're reaching out to build and nurture those relationships with their database on a regular basis. And this really hurt them, in my opinion, because they didn't have a strong relationship. They weren't in touch as much as they should have been. They weren't communicating in an effective and efficient manner. And this all adds up in these times. And then you bundle that with my theory, which I think can be proven by businesses over time, is that there is a flock to quality. And so when things get tough or people get scared, they want to do business with somebody that they really know that's in this, taking this serious, and that they trust and they know is going to continue to be in the business long term.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And I think, from a standpoint of, it's all kind of that. I had a coaching meeting the other day with an agent. We talked about pipeline. It's not so much about, production of what the listings and the sales that you're currently doing right now, but really at the end of the day, an agent doesn't have to be held accountable to going on a listing appointment. They don't have to be held accountable to sticking a buyer or writing up a contract. We just naturally do that. Where the important stuff is, where they need to be held accountable on, is more so is that lead generation or the conversations that they're consistently having to then finding people that are thinking about buying or selling, and then putting those people into a pipeline and then nurturing that pipeline over time. What's your thoughts on those 3 items?
Well, when you talk about continue to fill that pipeline, that's my biggest concern. Is I see people so crazy busy right now. The number one thing I preach to even top producers is that, listen, you are overwhelmed. You're working with tons of buyers and sellers. There's multiple offers out there. So buyers are really difficult because they're losing out on house after house. But I said, the thing that you've got to be disciplined and continue to do that, build this pipeline that makes you so busy right now, is make sure somehow, some way, hopefully every day, but at minimum, a certain amount of hours per week, that you are blocking out time to continue to reach out and build and nurture your relationships. That if you're not continue to do that, yes, you'll continue to be busy today and maybe over the next 30 to 60 days, but 3 to 6 months from now, your pipeline is going to basically evaporate, and it's not going to be there, and you have to start this process again. So no matter how busy you get, I think that is the most difficult thing for real estate agents to do is to continue to stay focused on building and nurturing those relationships that they have with people and staying in touch with them. And unfortunately, the vast majority of people in the real estate business are on this roller coaster ride for that exact reason. They have no business. They get panicked. All of a sudden, they pick up the phone. They do handwritten notes. They do Popeyes. They do all of these type of things to build and nurture relationships. They get busy and they stop doing them again. And it drives me absolutely crazy. So please, please, please continue to stay in touch with people. Today's prospecting, revenue generating business growth activities is going to be what your pipeline is 3 to 6 months from now. So I think hopefully that answers your question on the pipeline. I think you had another question there also, Gary.
Well, it just, it's always, from a standpoint, I think that it might be the question that I had was scheduling, right? I mean, yeah. Being able to get the lead generation done. My opinion is if it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. So I've always coached that you should at least have, 3 90-minute blocks within your week that you're actually sitting down, focused, trying to get into conversation with, again, you can go through the gamut of different types of people you're going to call. But again, for the agent that has that strong database, they should be reaching out to their A's, their A pluses, and again, we used COVID as an excuse of saying, well, you should be calling them and saying, hey, how are you doing during this tough time? And I couldn't believe how many brokers around the country, and just so you know, you were not one of them, around the country that were saying that you should not be asking for business right now. We should be just saying, how are you doing? I think coaches from the beginning of time have been always saying that you should be reaching out to your database to ask them how they're doing. Nobody ever calls and the first thing that comes out of their mouth that says, hey, who do you know who's thinking about buying or selling real estate anytime now in their future? It's always, how are you doing? And obviously COVID-19, or even, the riots and just the stuff that's going on in the news and everything else, just wanted to reach out to you, wanted to see how things are going. Oh, by the way, since I do have you on the phone, is there anybody that you might be comfortable in introducing me to that might be thinking about buying or selling? What are your thoughts around any of that?
Gary, 2 parts. One is I've always coached before any of this came up, and as you reach out to people, I think you should be reaching out. One is, we agree, in your schedule should be 3 things. One is your current business, which is immediate gratification. Everybody puts in there. The second thing is I want you to put your personal life in there, right? You got date night, you got things with your kids. You're going to work out. You're going to play tennis. You're going to take a run. Whatever it is, your vacations, put your personal life in there. But the third component of the schedule that's got to be blocked out, I believe, 1 to 2 hours a day, 7 to 10 hours a week, if you're going to continue to grow your business, is prospecting, business growth, revenue generating activity. So I do believe for the vast majority of people, it needs to be time blocked, uninterrupted, because if you start and stop, it takes you 3 or 4 times longer to get there. So the schedule part of that is absolutely critical. I'm getting old, and so refresh me on the second part of this, because I was ready to head there before I got sidetracked on the schedule.
Well, first, before we go to the second part, I always like to try to get a little bit of engagement. Like right now,
I got the second one. I care. You're asking about that phone call. Absolutely. So we've always coached that you need an I care attitude. There always should be a reaching out to them, what's going on in their lives. It can't always be business. But the second thing that I've seen that we saw in this, Gary, is if we've continued to stay in touch with people, they know we're in the real estate business. And when things like what happened in 2007, 8, and 9, when the market crashed, when things like this happens, what happens is real estate and the overall economy are directly related. So people, when you call with an I care attitude and ask them what's going on and how they're doing, the vast majority of them, without even you bringing it up, will go ahead and ask you how real estate's going, how that's affecting house prices and things like that. So they'll open the door for you. Not always. And so in the cases where they don't, then I do believe you need to reach out and be there to educate them, to let them know what's going on in the marketplace. Not everybody knows interest rates are at historic lows, that you can get a 30-year mortgage interest rate at 3%. That's crazy. Not everybody knows that first time and move up home buyer market, that the prices are going up like crazy, and many of those people have built much equity. So I do think that we have a burden and a responsibility that falls on our shoulders to continue to be out there, to be advisors, to give value to them, to let them know and educate them on what's going on in the marketplace. So I care is great. It should be part of every component whether something like this is going on or not. Many times they'll open the door to real estate, but if not, educate them. And they're going to find value in what you're talking about. And most people love talking about real estate. So it's not a subject matter that's hard to breach with people.
Okay. You're absolutely correct on that. So here's what I like to do. So right now, I just tell you this: you are the you are actually the inspiration for me to switch from a trainer to a coach. And so I did that early on this year, and so I created, video. Everybody's talking about video. You got to do more video. So I adopted this StreamYard product that we're currently using right now, and just basically going live. And so every Tuesday I try to bring on an industry leader. Next, I think in 2 weeks I'm going to have Greg Mitchell, and then I'm just bringing on somebody that kind of identifies or reiterates the systems that I'm coaching on. And also then just somebody who's really cool. I mean, you and I are kind of agree on a high level when it comes to your database and how you should communicate. And I think one of the things that I learned from you about 2 years ago was the coffee appointment. And you had kind of a long sheet, and I'm going to share that on my page with everybody. But talk about the coffee appointment.
So it's basically, it goes back to, if you believe as I do that we're in the relationship building business, that's the most important thing. And there's 4 traits. I'm a little off, but there's 4 traits. Reach out to my buddy Ryan Estes, who taught me this. 4 traits are absolutely essential to build a great relationship: that people like you, that people believe in you, that people have confidence in you, and that people trust you. Okay. And the vast majority of people think that trust is the most important initial trait. It's not. Likability is the most important trait. Likability is that trait that connects you immediately, right? And the most common question people ask when they get socially together is, what do you do for a living? And it's a stupid question, because the last Gallup poll I saw said 71% of people hate what they're doing for a living. So to believe in someone, to have confidence in somebody, and to trust somebody are traits that take time to establish. So get people to like you, connect with them, ask what their hobbies are, what their passions are, what do they love doing when they're not working. So what you're talking about is, in the relationship building business, face-to-face, without any doubt, is still the most effective way to build and nurture relationships, because you have body language, you have voice, you have touch, you have sight, you have all your communication skills working for you. And so what we do is we put a sheet together that you're talking about, where it's basically a process where we want you to reach out to them and call them. And that's your A players. I think Brian Buffini would probably call that your A players. The people that are most likely to refer business to you and be your raving fans. But reach out to them, make them feel special. Set the correct expectations. When we don't set correct expectations, we cannot expect to yield proper results. So set an expectation. Set an expectation that we're going to talk about business when we get together. Make them feel special, and then talk about your passion, your energy, and your excitement when you're on that phone, because people are drawn. Study after study have shown people are drawn to passion, energy, and excitement. And when they know that you're asking sincerely for them to help you, you're excited about it, you're trying to do something special, it's human behavior in America for them to want to help you back. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do, is reach out to them, set the correct expectations, make them feel special on that call, get together with them. And it starts out with what we just talked about, having that I care attitude. But then you are going to spend a few minutes talking about real estate with them. And when you do that, you're going to not only build them as a client for life, because you're going to give them value in that process, but you're going to get referral business from their coworkers, their neighbors, their friends, their family, and others.
Sweet. That was really good. All right. Well, let's go ahead and just so you know, I typically, the most I've ever had on a live stream, and I market the heck out of these things, is 8.
We're at 9.
We hit 17. We're down to 14. So we must have said something that somebody decided to log off, but currently we have 14. But the other power of just, if we're talking about anything here about Facebook and live streaming and video and that type of stuff, which, it's been around for 12 years. It's not anything new. It's just there's been a lot of agents that have really embraced this. And coming into COVID-19, where everybody had to embrace video, had to feel comfortable being in front of a camera And I mean, do you have any thoughts in regards to video and how that's used and stuff like that?
The problem is, I hear from people all the time is, you know what? I don't like doing video. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. And basically, I just tell people, you got to get over yourself, because the truth is, the people that already know you, they like you for who you are. They already know how you look, and they already know how you sound. So whether you like yourself on video or not, that is who you are. And the truth is, why do we have to embrace video? We got to embrace video because whether it's an email, whether it's social media, whatever it is, it gets more opens, it gets more exposure. It allows you to communicate in a more effective manner. So, it just takes time. The more that you do it, the more that you practice it, the more videos you do, whether they're live or they're not live, the more comfortable you're going to come with that process. But video is not going away. Video is going to be here for the long haul. So I really feel like our industry, I feel like I've been talking about this for 8, 9, 10 years now. Our industry is really a slow adapter to this. And so I think we really got to start embracing this. And then if you take COVID into consideration, I think one of the fundamental changes, Gary, that will come out of here, which is not a video, but I think is related to it, is Matterports and virtual tours and stuff like that. I've just seen a lot of stuff over the last 30 to 45 days where people are doing more and more of those than they ever have before. It's not like it's a new technology, right? But the Matterports and the virtual tours, because people's website traffic and Zillow's all the way down is up, people are getting on there and they're looking at that and they're liking that. So I think it's going to become the expectations of more sellers and more buyers in the marketplace that we do those type of things. And it's not exactly related to video, but I think it's kind of in the same family. Those visual things just draw more attention to them.
Yeah. And I think, when you talked about your coffee appointment earlier, I think one of the things that we've been trying to implement more is, because there are some people that are really sensitive to the COVID-19. I mean, you're seeing it if you go into a grocery store, you go in anywhere. I mean, either you've got your mask people, you got your people that will refuse to wear a mask. You've got places that it's like chaos and nobody's required to wear a mask, where you go to like a Costco and you can't enter the doors unless you have a mask on. But one of the things that we've implemented in our business is from the coffee appointment idea is to do coffee appointment Zoom. I mean, they have a cup of coffee, you have a cup of coffee. And if you get together, and especially for us, it starts with a text message. Hey, I'd love to reach out to you. And if you've got a platform on Zoom, meaning you got the free account, you can set up a Zoom call within 2 seconds. And the nice thing is that everybody there's probably not a human right now that has not done some type of a Zoom call. And so just because that happened, people are more open to doing it. I mean, me going in and doing from a training standpoint to where I could only fly in to talk to an owner of a real estate company. If before COVID-19, if I asked them to be on a Zoom call, they'd go, "You're nuts. I've never done this. We can't build a relationship this way." And now, because they've been on 100 Zoom calls, that's the first thing that gets brought up is, "Hey, you don't need to fly in here. Why don't we go ahead and get on a Zoom call?" So just as basic as a cup of coffee, the number one way I think to connect with somebody obviously is face-to-face. The number two way is through video. And because there's no bad way to connect with anybody. There's only just good, better, and best. So, all right. Well, I would like to just transition over into how your view is on the Omaha real estate market and kind of where you think it's at and where you think it's going to end up this year in 2020.
So we as an organization, we're 40% of the market share. We're having our best year ever. And I would have not, like I said, if you had asked me in the middle of March, I would have never, ever guessed that. I would have thought, oh my, this is going to be a horrible year. So as you said, I gave some speeches in Pennsylvania, Michigan, California, amongst some other states. Those states, I feel very sorry for my friends in those states because they have been on shutdown. They've not been able to go out and get a listing or show. It has been 100% viral. So I tend to believe that the market's going to continue to be strong for and 2020 is going to be a much better year from a real estate perspective than we ever would have guessed before. And I believe it's because the stock markets went from 29,000 to 18,000. I haven't looked in the last week, but I know it bounced back over 25,000. I'm assuming it's still there. So people are feeling good about some stability there. And the stock market was at an all-time high before we went into this. Interest rates, as I said, are historically all-time low. Unemployment was an all-time low. We're going to have to get some stability back there. But the reasons I feel different about this than I did in 2007 and 8 as we were heading into that crash and Great Recession is that this was not caused by the economy. This is caused by a health issue. The economy was really strong and moving forward. But there's two fundamental differences from the real estate business perspective. One is we had more inventory back then, substantially more inventory than we did now. And quite honestly, you're starting to see some houses going to foreclosures back in 2008. We don't really have any of that now. And second of all, what we thought was an unbelievable interest rate at that point in time was 6.5%. Well, we're sitting here half of that right now. So interest rates are so much lower. The buying power of a consumer today and people, Gary, I'm sure you saw surveys on this, millennials, but now it's not only millennials, but it's all generations. A millennial who walks in to buy a car, the car dealer doesn't ask them, what price car do you want? The first question they ask is, what payment are you looking for? Right? And we've went from 4 years to 5 years to 6 years to 7-year loans on cars now. Well, that's how the vast majority of people buy houses also. So when you're buying a house and you're looking at what your monthly payment can be on that, right? The bottom line is you're at 3% interest rates, your monthly payment, you're going to be able to buy a whole lot more house for the same monthly payment than you could before. So I don't see when you look at, we just added $3 trillion of debt to our deficit. We can hardly service it. I don't see the Fed or the government or anybody having any appetite for increasing interest rates. We've got an election coming up in November. The debt and deficit is skyrocketed this year. So I tend to believe the balance of this year, interest rates are going to stay 3.5 or below on a 30-year mortgage, which is going to continue to give incredible buying power to the consumer. I think the second reason I believe the market's going to continue to be strong is anybody that is in Omaha that owns a house really under $300,000 that bought it 2-3+ years ago has incredible equity they can pull out of that house and then use the interest rate to move up into another house. So if their family size has grown or their income has grown, it's an incredible opportunity to do that. So there's just some fundamental differences to what's happened here than what happened back in 2007, 8, 9. And so I tend to believe we're going to continue to have low inventory. I will tell you over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I saw that a huge winner out of this has been new construction because there's such low inventory. Buyers who say that they wouldn't build are now building houses. And I think builders are going to become overwhelmed here. And quite honestly, their pipeline's filling up pretty quick. But I just don't see the demand going away unless interest rates would go 4+ here soon. And I don't see that happening, Gary.
Yeah. And I think that, even it's amazing to watch, obviously with multiple offer situations, we had a specific listing that was priced at 160, cute little house, bought it 4 years ago for 125,000. Across the street from a public pool or private pool, and I think we ended up getting 32 offers. We ended up getting 75 showings on it. We ended up getting 22 offers. It was 22 offers, and and it ended up selling for $22,000 for cash. That is just absolutely crazy. Have you ever seen another time in the market that has been this way?
No, and Gary, to that point, I mean, at a mastermind yesterday, someone had bought a house less than 2 years ago for 147, had an offer of 180 on it. One in the last year, someone had bought one 8 months ago. I just had an hour and a half ago, someone tell me sold it for 25,000 more than 8 months ago. I've never seen this. That's California stuff. That's East and West Coast type of numbers. We've never seen it here before. Now, I think there's a couple of things to understand. One is these houses under 2.25. I don't see them going back down in value. I mean, people are saying, am I paying too much for my house? And the answer is, yeah, you probably are paying too much for your house, but will it hold its value? I think is a totally different question. And I do believe it will hold its value because of simple supply and demand. Because if you look at what's happened to labor costs, to materials, and to land over the last 10 years, they've kept going up. You just can't build a house basically under 2.25 anymore. So there's not going to be any new supply put into the market. And if you do, the land's going to be so far removed from the areas that you're looking at buying in many cases, it's not going to be as appealing to you. So the one thing that we've seen is, for sell by owners are selling right now. One would argue you don't need a real estate agent, but I would argue the opposite. You do need a real estate agent because what's happening is for sell by owners aren't getting 22 offers. For sell by owners, and I've got agents in mastermind groups in the last week and a half, numerous ones that have offered with clients 20 to 25,000 over list price on houses 2.25 and below, and they're not getting them, Gary, because they're going for 30, 31,000 above that. So I think there's an opportunity if you could educate for sell by owners out there, go list with somebody, because you're going to end up ahead. That commission is going to get way more than paid by listing with somebody right now, because the interest and activity that we can create in that property, the multiple offers and the bids that we can get, is going to get them substantially more. And now they don't have to do all the work and stress and anxiety. We're going to take that off the plate for them. So quite honestly, sometimes we have some of our agents, we're saying, go out and sell for sell by owners, represent the buyer, and you're probably going to get them a better deal than you are in the market. And the for sale by owner isn't educated enough to know that.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. So if I'm a seller and I'm sitting here right now thinking, okay, yeah, sure, I'm going to go ahead and sell my house, but then I have to go out and buy one. I'm going to make money on the sell, more money on the sell, but then I have to go out and I'm going to pay inflated prices on the purchase of a new house. What would you say to a seller that has that objection?
It depends. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the price points they're coming out of. Again, if they're selling a house under 300,000, they're going to make great equity out of it. Not all houses and not all price points act equal. And what that means is there's numerous houses that were bought for $500,000, Gary, 7-8 years ago. They're still worth $500,000, maybe a little bit more. They've not had the same appreciation. A $135,000 house 5 years ago is worth $185,000 today. So if you're moving out of, I'm going to call it the first move up buyer market, which is up to 275, 300 now, which is kind of crazy to even have that conversation. You've built a lot of equity. And then if you're moving into buying a house 400 plus, you're not going to pay that crazy premium that you have on an existing house that someone's paying on buying your house that's 250 possibly. So now if you're moving out of a house that's 160 into a house that's 260, you're on both sides, you're doing that. But I would say, look at the interest rates. If just as we headed into 2019, the beginning of 2019, the end of 2018, I was telling everybody, we're going to have 5.5% interest rates. If you remember, we were at 4 3/4, 5% interest rates, and it looked like it was going to continue to go up. Nobody thought at the beginning of last year that we were going to be sitting under 4%, much less at 3% interest rates. Yeah. So the thing to look there again at is the interest rate. Look at the buying power. Look at what your monthly payment's going to be getting that new house. And what you've got to understand is interest rates are not going to stay down at 3% on a 30-year mortgage forever. And so if you say, okay, I'm going to wait till that market cools off, let's just say you save $10,000 on that $400,000 house or that $350,000 house. If interest rates go from 3 to 4%, your monthly interest payment is going to be higher than what it is today. So if you're the common consumer and you're looking at what your monthly payment's going to be, even though you're going to be paying a little bit more on that $250,000 to $300,000 and below house, if that's the markup, the market you're moving up to, your payment is going to be so attractive to what it could be in the future.
Yeah. All right. So one more question for you, and then we'll wrap up. Obviously, COVID-19 slowed things down maybe a little bit in the month of April. Things are kind of ramping back up again. And obviously, this is an election year. I know that you were saying early on or late in 2019 that, hey, if you're going to do your business, get your business done before, the election towards the end of the year. What are your thoughts on that right now still?
Yeah, I was saying up until late February that I felt make your year be done by the end of August, maybe September, because history tells us when we have presidential election years, that's different than the off years. When we have presidential election years, that many people go to the sidelines in those 2, 3, 4 months leading up into the election. The thing is, normally at this time of year, Gary, everybody would be talking about politics. I don't really hear anybody talking about who's running for president or politics for the most part. No. Everyone's talking about the protests going on. Everyone's talking about COVID. There's a lot of other things going on here. So I think this year is just completely off kilter, and I don't see the election affecting the market in that latter part of the year as I did. And the other part of that is there have been one of the reasons we have a shortage of listings here is I've had numerous agents tell me, Gary, that they've had sellers go to the sideline because of COVID. They were scared. They didn't want people coming to the house. And we still have people, right? If you're elderly if you've got someone in your family that's got medical conditions that's going to be susceptible to get this, heart or asthma or diabetes or things like that, they've got to be very cautious. But I think some of those people that went on the sideline that had planned on listing in March, April, and May are going to start listing some houses, and I think some of those will come on the market. And so I do think both buyers and sellers, but more sellers than buyers, that we've had some people on the sideline. So I tend to think that there's a little bit of pent-up demand, and I think that's what we've seen even the last couple of weeks here of why the market's been so strong. So I think there's a little bit more pent-up demand that got put off than we would typically have. I think interest rates being low, but I don't think the presidential election is going to affect us as I would have expected, and quite honestly, history has done in the past.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. It's tough anymore to even make predictions, isn't it? I mean, it's like,
well, I'm wrong at 50% of the time. So you can take half of this and figure, I don't know which half is right and which half is wrong. Because as you said, in February, I was like, oh, the last 4 months of the year is going to be horrible. And now I'm sitting there saying the exact opposite. So I always tell people, right. I reserve the right to change my mind.
All right, Vince, I appreciate you taking the time. Do you have any closing thoughts at all?
I don't. If you're an agent, all I can tell you is communicate often with clarity. You cannot over communicate to your database. Use a CRM system, as Gary kind of mentioned earlier, and time block out. No matter how busy you get, continue to be intentional on reaching out, building nurturing relationships. And always remember, it's not about just reaching out and saying, I care. That's important. And you do need to care. You need to be sincere in that. But make sure that you are giving them value and understand everybody has the information. Everybody can get the information out there of what a house sold for, okay, or what a house is listing for. We need to take our knowledge, right, and wisdom and create value for our clients in the marketplace. And clients expect to hear from us much more often than they have in the past, and actually want to hear from us and see us. And so I'd also figure out, how do I get face-to-face with people somehow, some way? You can't do big client appreciation parties. Get out of the box, think differently, learn from these experiences, and walk out of this better than you came into this.
All right, Vince, thanks a lot. Stay safe over at the office and stay cool, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Gary. Have a good day.